Assalamu alaikum guys and welcome to my YouTube channel Biology Articles and MCQs. Guys, our today's topic discussion is cloning. Cloning is a technique that the scientists use to make the exact copy of the living organism. For example, if it is a living organism and the scientists want to make a living organism exactly like that, then the process or technique they will use will be called as cloning. And the individual that is producing here or the cells or group of cells will be produced or the individual that was producing will be genetically identical to its ancestral cell or individual. If they are producing the cell through the process of cloning, then that cell will be exactly identical to its parent, and if the individual is producing, then the descendant individual will be exactly like its ancestral individual, and these individuals that are exactly like their ancestors are called as clone. Guys, if we talk about that have that cloning is possible in the nature or not, or it is only possible artificially, then the answer to this question is that cloning also occurs in nature, in the natural form. For example, some of the bacteria, that for example it is an ancestral bacteria and it is reproducing, and these are daughter cells or descendant bacteria that are forming, then these bacteria are exactly genetically identical to their parents, means all of their chromosomes and genes are exactly identical to their parent, and they are naturally reproducing. So this is a very exact example that the cloning also occurs in the nature. And the second example is related to the human beings. Guys, you know that the human beings, the twin children also develop due to the breakdown of the embryo, or due to the division of a single embryo. The two individuals that formed are called twins, identical twins. And these are identical twins, and because these are also genetically identical to each other, so they can be also called as clone. But in the artificial cloning, the descendants that will be produced will be exactly identical to their parents. But in the human twins, some of the similarities are between the twins are present, and some of their similarities are with the parents. So when the scientist will carry out the cloning in the lab, then the individuals that will be produced will be exactly identical to their parents. So guys, when the cloning is carried out in the lab, there are two processes through which the cloning can be carried out. Here is the first process through which the exactly identical descendant can be produced. First of all, here you can see that there is a somatic donor and there is a second cow that is called as egg donor. In this process, first of all, one individual, animal number 1, will be taken. Let's say it is animal number 1, and let's say it is animal number 2. We will take the egg cell from the animal number 2. Here is the egg cell and here is its nucleus present. The scientist will take the egg cell from the animal number 2 and remove its nucleus. And then similarly, the scientist will take a somatic cell from the animal number 1. Guys, you know that the somatic cell are the cells other than the egg and sperm cell, and they are simply called as body cells. So the scientist can take the somatic cell from any part of the body. It can be mammary gland, or it can be legs, or it can be any other part of the animal. So here a cell is removed, and this cell also contain a nucleus. You know that the nucleus contains the chromosomes and genes. So we will take the somatic cell from that animal of which we want to make a clone, or which desired in which we have the desired properties. So there will also be the nucleus removed. The nucleus of that egg cell will be removed, and then it will be discarded. It is of no use. And the nucleus of the somatic donor will be transferred to the cell of the animal number 2, means the egg cell of the animal number 2. Here it is a new cell formed which have the outer portion of the egg donor, and the nucleus is of the somatic donor. Because there is the transfer of the nucleus from the somatic cell of an animal, so this process is called as somatic cell nuclear transfer. Here is a new cell formed, and this new cell will be converted into then embryo. It will divide and change in and many cells alike. The first cell will be formed, and this will be called as embryo. Now this embryo will be implanted into the uterus of, or into the suitable womb where it will complete its development. Now, after the completion of the development, the new individual formed in this way will be exactly genetically identical clone of the individual whose nucleus was used. Means the nucleus of the animal number 1 was used, so the descendant that will form will be exactly identical to the animal number 1. So in this way, the cloning could make multiple copies of the desired genotype. Means the scientist will use that animal they want to be make clones, or who have many desired characteristics which they need in their descendant individual. So this first process is called as somatic cell nucleus transfer, because the nucleus of the somatic cell is transferred to the cytoplasm of the egg cell. The second process is called as embryo twinning. Guys, in this process, the animal will be taken. For example, this cow is taken, and there will be the removal of some egg cells from this cow. And this is the cow, which cow will be taken, or which animal will be taken. The animal will be taken whose the scientists want to make clones. So this animal is taken, and there will be the removal of some somatic cells here. And after the removal of the this is egg cell. After the removal of the egg cell, this egg cell will be divided. Scientists will carry out the division of this egg cell. After the division of the egg cell, it will divide into 2, then into 4, and then into 8, and carry out the division, and many identical cells will be formed. And you know that the cluster of identical cell is called as embryo. Now this embryo will be taken apart, means its cells are separated. For example, it is cell number 1 of the embryo, cell number 2, similarly it is cell number 3, and it is cell number 4. After the separation of the cells, each cell will be again developed into the identical embryos, and it is nature's rule. Now these embryos will be now implanted into the uterus or wombs of some other animals. And the animals in which the the uterus are used, which are used for carry out or for the development of these embryos, are called as surrogates mother. Now these embryo will be developed into the surrogate mother, where carry out its development in the surrogate mother, and then after the development, the identical cloned offsprings will be born, and these clones will be identical, exactly identical to their parent. Exactly identical means, guys, that these are genetically identical. All of the genes or chromosomes are exactly identical to their parents. So this second process is called embryo twinning, because in this process the embryo is divided again and again and then implanted in the uterus of a surrogate mother, and after the development the exactly identical individuals are produced. So in this way cloning is carried out. So guys, late process, the previous process we have studied, that was somatic cell nuclear transfer, was also used in 1996 to produce a sheep that was called as dolly. We will study the life of the dolly in the next video in the detailed way. Now we are going to discuss that have the human cloning is carried out or not. Guys, scientists have cloned horses, cows, sheep, and mice, etc. But they still have not cloned a human being though. The reason is that it is very difficult to produce a viable clone. There can be genetic mistakes and that can prevent the cloning from surviving. So they don't have cloned any human being. And it is very interesting to know that it took scientists 276 attempts to get that dolly sheep right. So it is not ethically true to clone a human being. So the human being is not and the cloning of the human being is not carried out yet. So here we have completed our cloning topic. We will meet in the next video, and if you like this video then share this video with your friends. Thank you so much.